The man in charge of tracking every terrorist threat to America just quit. Not because the job was too hard. Because he says the war we are fighting right now has no justification. Zero. None. And what he revealed on his way out the door should make every single American stop and listen. On March 17, 2026, Joe Kent, the director of the National Counterterrorism Center, walked away from one of the most powerful intelligence positions in the world. His reason? Iran poses no imminent threat to the United States, and this war was manufactured. Today, we are going inside the fracture at the heart of American national security, the economic shockwave heading straight for your wallet, and a betrayal of a promise made to 74 million voters. The most shocking part comes at the very end. Rewind to January 2025. The promise was simple and electrifying. America first. No more endless wars. Bring the troops home. Spend those trillions here, not in deserts half a world away. And for a while it felt real. Defense spending was being redirected. Diplomatic channels with adversaries were opening. Joe Kent, a decorated Green Beret who lost his first wife to a suicide bomber in Syria, was appointed to lead the NCTC precisely because he embodied that vision. A warrior who understood the cost of war in blood, not just budget lines. Think about Jay, a machinist in Toledo, Ohio. Gas was hovering around $3.10 a gallon. His 401k had climbed 9% in 12 months. Every Friday he took his kids out for pizza, no calculator needed. The economy felt stable. The world felt manageable. 74 million Americans believed the era of being dragged into foreign wars for someone else's agenda was finally over. But here's what nobody understood at the time. The architecture for the next war was already being assembled, brick by brick, inside the very administration that promised peace. But here's the thing. By late February 2026, American cruise missiles were striking Iranian military installations. The administration called it a preemptive response to an imminent threat. 3 weeks later, Joe Kent, the man whose entire job was to assess those threats, stood up and said, there was no imminent threat. Let that sink in. The head of counterterrorism intelligence, with access to every classified briefing in the country, says the justification for this war does not exist. In his resignation letter, Kent went further. He accused Israel and its lobbying apparatus of running what he called a false information campaign designed to drag the United States into a conflict that serves Israeli strategic interests. Not American ones. This is not some fringe blogger. This is the director of the NCTC. A man with a Bronze Star and a Purple Heart, putting his career and reputation on a grenade to warn the public. Trump's response? He called Kent weak on security and said his departure was a good thing. Think about that framing. The most decorated counterterrorism official in the building gets labeled weak because he refused to rubber stamp a war. If that does not remind you of Iraq in 2003, when intelligence was twisted to fit a predetermined conclusion, you have not been paying attention. And the truly terrifying part? I will reveal that shortly. Now, here's where it gets wild. Kent's resignation cracked open a fault line that runs straight through the heart of the America. First movement. On one side, you have the non-interventionists, the people who voted for Trump specifically because he promised to end forever wars. On the other side, you have the hawkish pro-Israel coalition pushing for maximum pressure on Iran. These two groups coexisted for years under the same political tent. That tent just caught fire. Within 48 hours of Kent's resignation, 3 Republican congressmen publicly questioned the war's legal authorization. Senator Mike Lee called for an emergency war powers debate. Conservative media fractured overnight. Tucker Carlson devoted an entire broadcast to Kent's letter, calling it the most important document since the Pentagon Papers. Meanwhile, the administration doubled down. National Security Advisor called the war existential. But Kent had already exposed the echo chamber. A closed loop where intelligence gets filtered, amplified, and fed back until a policy preference looks like an established fact. It is like your GPS recalculating a route based on traffic data from 3 years ago. The map says you're fine. The road says you're driving off a cliff. What if Kent had stayed silent? What if no one inside had spoken up? We would be 3 weeks into a war with zero public debate about whether the intelligence even supports it. But Kent did not just expose the war. He exposed something far more dangerous about how decisions get made in the building that is supposed to protect you. So why should you care if you're not in the military and do not follow foreign policy? Because this war is a money-eating machine aimed directly at your bank account. Since strikes began on February 25th, West Texas Intermediate crude has surged 26%, pushing past $140 a barrel. That is not an abstraction. For Jay, back in Toledo, gas just crossed $5.20 a gallon. His weekly commute now costs him $42 more per month. That is 2 fewer family pizza nights. Gone. Multiply that across 130 million American households. The Defense Department has already requested an emergency supplemental budget of $52 billion for the first 90 days of operations. That money comes from somewhere. Either it gets added to a national debt already exceeding $36 trillion, or it gets pulled from infrastructure, education, and healthcare. Inflation, which had finally cooled to 2.8% in January, is now projected to spike back above 5% by summer if the conflict extends past June. Your mortgage rate, your grocery bill, your rent, all of it climbs. If the U.S. had diversified its energy strategy and reduced Middle East oil dependency to 45% over the past decade, analysts estimate today's gas prices would be at least 40 cents cheaper per gallon. But we did not. And now every American household is paying the tax for that failure. Jay is not watching cable news debates about geopolitics. He is watching the numbers on the gas pump spin faster than his paycheck can keep up. That is the real cost of this war, and it has already started. Here is the question no one in Washington wants to answer. If the head of American counterterrorism says there is no imminent threat, and the war proceeds anyway, then who exactly is this war for? Kent gave his answer. You may agree or disagree, but the fact that the question even exists should keep you up at night. We have seen this movie before. Iraq cost the United States over $3 trillion and 4,488 American lives, all built on intelligence that turned out to be wrong. The economic aftershock contributed to the 2008 financial crisis that wiped out $8 trillion in American household wealth. Are we watching the sequel? The machinery is the same. The echo chamber is the same. The dismissal of dissent is the same. The only difference is that this time, someone on the inside had the courage to say it out loud before the damage became irreversible. How are you preparing for what comes next? What would you do if you were in Kent's position? Joe Kent did not just resign from a job. He held up a mirror to an entire system and asked America to look. The real threat is not always the enemy your government points to. Sometimes it is the process that decides who the enemy is in the first place. When the people paid to tell the truth have to quit in order to speak it, the institution is no longer protecting you. It is protecting itself. If this story matters to you, hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a breakdown like this. Drop your take in the comments. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. The more people who understand what is happening, the harder it becomes to hide.